Well, Karen, if you're not familiar with the game of dodgeball, the object is to hit your opponent with the ball without them catching it. These hailstones and hundreds more like them left the fleet here at Adams Toyota literally in ruins. Well, Michael, most people don't realize this, but on the back of every ticket, the Royals actually warn fans about the dangers of foul balls. The risk obviously goes up the better the seat you have, especially here on the first base line. The Fitness Together store here in Olathe coming soon. They would leave the front door here open so that construction workers can come and go. This morning, instead, a burglar walked in and proceeded to chisel his way through the drywall.
Tim?
Yeah, Karen, take a look. That is a child there being loaded into the back of that massed ambulance. This is all happening at 12th and Van Brunt. A school bus. We don't exactly know from what school. It says Durham School Services on the side of the bus has been involved in an accident here at 12th and Van Brunt. Best I can tell, that minivan there in the intersection was trying to turn left, go east on 12th. The school bus was already going east on 12th. The two collided. It appears the minivan broadsided the school bus. The school bus, we're told, was full of kids at the time of the accident. Those kids have slowly been loaded off one by one onto stretchers and taken to local hospitals. We're told, though, however, the good news is that none of the children appear to be seriously injured. They are simply going to the hospitals as a precaution. But again, a school bus accident here at 12th and Van Brunt. As many as 6 kids already taken to the hospital. We'll have an update coming up tonight at 6. Live in Kansas City, Missouri, Tim Vetcher, KCTV 5 News. Well, Craig, the Lawrence Journal-World is read by more than 20,000 people a day, but tonight, instead of reporting on the news, this is a newspaper making the news. In the news business, mistakes can and invariably do happen. The Lawrence Journal-World lists theirs on page 2B. But the correction in today's paper comes as little comfort for Chris Bryan.
They can't really be blamed for having me robbed, but they are clearly to blame for making me a target to be robbed.
That so-called target first appeared in the July 18th edition and ran for the next 9 days. A classified ad stating that items left at 1319 Tennessee by the recently deceased Deborah Thomas, such as furniture and clothing, will be thrown away by July 28th if unclaimed.
I really wish they would have checked that proof a little closer.
The landlord who purchased the ad intended it to read 1339 Tennessee. An apparent typo incorrectly listed Chris's address instead, so you can imagine her surprise when she came home and found 2 people helping themselves to her belongings.
My television, my DVD player, my VCR, my PlayStation 2, close to 20 PS2 games, about 10 PS1 games.
Total loss, $3,500, and that's only the stuff you can put a price tag on.
My 7-week-old kitten, Chimera, they took her.
So Chris drafted her own correction for those who hadn't read the Journal-World's, a reminder that, as they say, you can't believe everything you read in the paper.
Mistakes are made, yeah, and sometimes you can overlook them because nothing bad happens, but sometimes people make mistakes and something bad does happen, and, you know, people lose money or people get hurt, and sometimes you have to take responsibility.
Now, Ralph Gage, who is Chief Operating Officer of the World Company, which owns the Lawrence Journal-World, told me today they are still investigating, trying to figure out exactly where the mistake was made. As for Chris, tonight she is contemplating legal action. Live in the newsroom, Tim Vetcher, KCTV 5 News. Well, Brad, you can probably hear the music. Every Tuesday night, blues musicians from across the metro gather to jam at this KCK bar. Tonight, they're singing to remember one of their own.
Some call me Lester, some call me King.
They called him the Wizard.
Some call me a sinner.
Listen to Lester King play guitar, and you'll understand why. But tonight, it's his fans singing the blues.
His personality shined whenever he came around, and his music was outstanding.
He was just a wonderful, gentle, kind human being.
In his day job, Lester worked at LSI Midwest Lighting in KCK, but today, for reasons which remain unclear, Lester was fired. He returned around 2 o'clock this afternoon and started shooting.
That would just be totally out of character, and the blues community is in deep shock.
Lester then drove himself home, pointed the gun at his chest, and pulled the trigger. He died a short time later at the hospital.
It's hard for me to understand what happened today, but we're really going to miss him because of just the quality of a human being that he was.
The Wizard released his latest CD just last month. The last track is called Goodbye.
Goodbye, darling.
A title that, after today, suddenly has a whole new meaning.
That Kansas City will definitely miss one of the greatest musicians, one of the great musicians that always comes out of Kansas City.
Now, Lester never did hit any of his coworkers at the plant. His friends say that was on purpose. While he may have wanted to scare a few people, he would never hurt anyone. Live in KCK, Tim Vetcher, KCTV 5 News. Seen how dangerous New Orleans can be during the daytime, but when the sun goes down, that danger increases exponentially. It's a time when soldiers from the Missouri National Guard are needed most.
All shocker elements, I need backup up here, 45th and Causeway.
Like a raccoon or a bat, criminals also tend to come out after dark. And a city without electricity is like a playground for those who pray. Welcome to New Orleans at night.
You never know who's coming. I mean, I don't know where they're coming from, and you don't know what they have, you know, what their intentions are.
And on this night, the responsibility to keep the peace belongs to the Missouri Army National Guard, commanded by Captain Scott Turner, who likens the scene here to that in Iraq.
I'm running into a lot of the same things that I would if I was overseas. You know, people doing desperate things in desperate times.
Turner has stationed his soldiers at points throughout Jefferson Parish with one simple instruction: meet force with force, deadly if need be. This man flagged down soldiers after scaring away looters with gunshots.
We've never heard them here. We've been here for 5 years and never heard a single shot.
And now they're nightly.
Yes.
Wow.
It's just very upsetting, you know.
Said somebody's screaming right down the street, so we're gonna head that way here.
Usually those are screams for help. You would too if you were Arturo Cadena, who claims a man showed up at his door with a 9mm gun.
They said they're protecting the neighborhood and stuff like that. He's bragging about that he's got some kind of weapon, and he's been drinking vodka, and weapons and alcohol don't mix.
Soldiers found said weapon and arrested the man carrying it.
It's very similar to what goes on when you're in combat. People are trying to just survive whatever means they can.
Survivors turned scofflaws. Just another night in New Orleans. Tim Vetcher, KCTV 5 News. Well, Michael and Karen, there is nothing more personal than your own medical records. Doctors and medical offices have a high degree of responsibility to protect that information, which makes what we found and how we found it all the more disturbing. Nothing quite captures the impact of plastic surgery like before and after pictures. A quick search of the internet will give you hundreds of examples as proof. These women agreed to let their pictures be public, but for most, plastic surgery is an extremely private and personal decision.
It's embarrassing to stand there because you have the doctor and a nurse in there taking your pictures.
Years ago, a woman who we'll call Jane sought out a plastic surgeon. She had long suffered with chronic back pain and needed a breast reduction, so Jane went to Monarch Plastic Surgery in Leawood for a consultation.
I just assumed it would be confidential, just because it's at a doctor's office and you basically are telling them things that are private.
Her assumption couldn't have been more wrong. Jane's private information ended up in a very public place. Her before pictures and hundreds like them were found here on the curb in front of this Mission Hills home.
That is disturbing. I don't know why he would have it at home.
He is Dr. Daniel Bortnick, seen here on a KCTV5 special just last September. This spring, he decided to throw out his old work computer on Heavy Item Pickup Day in Mission Hills.
It blew me away.
Big Item Pickup Day is better than Christmas Eve to scavengers. People like Bob Dickerson, who searched trash in hopes of treasure. Bob found the computer and brought it to the Besco Computer Store in Shawnee.
It didn't have any RAM in it, so we put in a stick of RAM, turned it on, and it fired right up.
The whole process took just minutes and cost only $35. But in a lawsuit Monarch filed against KCTV5 seeking to restrict parts of this investigation, Bortnick's attorneys described the process as, quote, an extraordinary effort. And by putting RAM back into it, is that an extraordinary effort?
No, that's not extraordinary.
What is it?
Common.
Okay.
Average.
In court filings, Monarch claims it attempted to remove the patient information, but never actually explains how that attempt was made. Dr. Bortnick only admits to removing the RAM or memory card before setting the computer on the curb. When somebody says they made an attempt to destroy this information just by removing the RAM, what's your reaction to that?
They didn't do anything. It was pointless.
The now fully functioning computer revealed some 600 before and after pictures, as well as names and home addresses of Bortnick's patients. It even contained the social security numbers of Bortnick's partners at Monarch. Dickerson was so shocked at what popped up on the screen, he called us.
You know, they think, okay, it's never going to be, nobody's going to see these pictures except a doctor or a professional. Well, the doctor took the computer home or whatever, and then he just throws it out on the curb without doing anything with it.
Would it be safe to say this is a black eye for the profession?
Yes.
Dr. John Bakey is an Overland Park plastic surgeon. He and other health professionals are governed by a host of privacy regulations. The foremost authority being HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. The act demands that doctors' offices like Bortnick's have procedures for, quote, the final disposition of electronic protected health information. Drafted in 1996, this exact scenario was even anticipated. What if the person digging through the dumpster had been interested in starting some sort of voyeur website?
Then that would have been horrible. That would have been absolutely horrible.
In the hopes of preventing such a possibility, the government published this pamphlet telling doctors how best to dispose of electronic records. It says those records should be degaussed, a process using a powerful magnet. Or the hard drive should be physically destroyed, smashed to pieces, as we've shown in previous KCTV 5 News investigations.
I would not recommend anyone to go there.
Something Jane thinks someone with Dr. Bortnick's responsibilities would and should know.
It's just very embarrassing to me, just because it could have gotten out to anyone. They could have sold it on the internet.
Now, in none of the multiple court filings did Dr. Bortnick ever explain exactly what attempt was made to erase the data. And Michael and Karen, we wanted to ask him that question ourselves, but neither Dr. Bortnick nor his attorneys ever gave us an explanation.